So I just want to introduce Pat. Many of you know Pat already because she's joined us at quite a lot of our sessions, and she is Superwoman and knows everybody who's everybody. But Pat, I first met Pat through some work that she's doing at her Roman Catholic parish church called Sacred Heart in Kilburn, and also through her day job at a local advice charity. And when I first met her, she was telling me all about how she'd set up savings clubs. So we went along and made a little video with her about what she was doing, with the view that this might be a really good thing that somebody else could copy, because it's all the best ideas are nicked, aren't they, really? Let's be honest. So I'd really ask Pat to talk a little bit about what you've done, both with the savings club at the church, but also in your job as a money advice guru in, I was going to say Northwest London, but now it's just London, isn't it? Across London.
I've gone global. We had people on our CAP course from Dubai, so.
Wow, that's the joy of Zoom.
Intergalactic is the next mission.
Brilliant. So do you want to just start off by telling us a little bit about why it was that, I mean, because you wear a parish church hat and also a job hat. I think several of us have that here.
I do. I'm going to, like typically ask a busy person if you want anything done. And I realise that many of you wear many duplicitous caps as well. So what I'm going to do, because I always forget the things that I do, and then suddenly somebody mentions everything, I'm like, oh, I do that as well, is I'm going to refer to my slides. So I'm going to jump straight.
Go for it. Jump straight in. Yeah.
Alison, can you be my eyes just in case the questions come through? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so it's all about me. It's all about me. I do always say that. It's a joke. It's all about money and in the community for the community. So who am I? As I say, my name's Pat Fernandez. I've seen many of your lovely faces quite a bit over the summer and particularly over the last 2 weeks. So by day, I'm a mild-mannered, that's a good start, financial inclusion manager for a charity called Advice for Renters. For them, I manage 2 projects. One's called It's All About Money, which is a one-to-one money mentoring project. And the other, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is called In the Community for the Community. The thing that's key about this project is that last year we ran and introduced and started many financial capability initiatives, but we will only ever have so much capacity. My project this year is all about supporting community leaders, faith groups, schools, low-income employers, basically everywhere where people meet and congregate and are able to reach those that are marginalised in our communities, to replicate and cascade those initiatives throughout their communities to hopefully help to make them more resilient. So in addition to that, I manage Brent Mutual, which is affiliated to Hillingdon Credit Union. I'm a parish facilitator for the London Capital Credit Union, which is central London. We are just about set up as a CMA, Community Money Advice Debt Management Centre. I'm a board member of Caritas. I'm a parish representative for Caritas. I'm a Caritas partner organisation. I'm a Christians Against Poverty money coach. I'm an Acts 435 advocate. I'm a Talk for Health peer support mental health facilitator. And I am a founder member of the Brent Solidarity Fund, which was born out of the Brent Mutual Aid movement. So a little bit busy.
What do you do on the rest of the week, Pat?
On my day off, on those glorious days. As I say, I coordinate, manage and facilitate 2 credit unions. And within those, we are encouraging community leaders again to start their own community savers clubs. I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. We have a crisis grant or we're allowed to offer crisis support through Acts 435, which I think Jenny is talking next week, is that? Yeah,
the final session next Wednesday evening, Jenny will come and talk, who runs Acts 435, will come and talk about how you can partner with them. So we'll touch on that. We don't touch on that today.
Don't indeed, and I'll see you there. And as I say, we're just about to start a community money advice debt management centre, and we can either offer support directly to your clients there or work with you as buddy mentors to hold your hands through doing that. Okay, so on to savings. So I'm going to talk a little bit about setting the scenario and how you can save. Obviously, saving, there's always a little bit of sacrifice involved, but we're going to look at a few scenarios. So if you're doing okay, if you're fair to middling, if you're on benefits, if you've got absolutely no money at all, how can you save? We're going to talk a little bit about Credit unions, where you can save, why they're a very worthy place to save in or at. And we're going to talk about how you can create your own community savers club as well. So, savings crisis. So we're in the midst of this pandemic, but it's pretty fair to say that we're also in a savings pandemic as well. We're always talking about a debt crisis, but we're also in the midst of a savings crisis. So 25% of people nationally have less than £100 in savings. When that you actually get to London, that rises to 40%. So that means that approximately 3.6 million Londoners have little or no financial resilience at all. Now, these figures that I'm quoting you at the moment are all pre-COVID. So you can stick a good dollop of extra portions on top of all of these figures. I think the Money charity has only just come back on board, having furloughed all of its staff, and have only just producing figures that relate to COVID. So I look forward very regrettably to seeing what's going to happen with those. So it was fair to say, again, prior to COVID, that 14 million people would have faced some sort of income shock, massive change into their circumstances, would have led to their debt spiralling out of control. Again, it's probably fair to say 66 million people, the entire population of Great Britain, have faced some sort of financial shock at the moment. You know, life doesn't just stop because we're in a bit of predicament. 4 in 10 people in problem debt will experience some kind of emergency sort of rainy day scenario, like a broken boiler, car repairs, parking tickets even, not that I'm bitter. Okay, so 21.8 million of people in the UK aren't confident that they have enough savings to cope with a rainy day. And again, that was a figure from 2015, so we all understand the impact that COVID has had on people's resilience, people's savings, people having their income reduced, either wiped out or reduced in terms of furlough. So how can you save? Where can you save? Many of us at the moment are living at it's very rare that people actually live within their income. Most people tend to live at the very, very extremes, which is why any of these rainy day crises can be such a major knock to us, let alone the major life-changing events such as bereavement and relationship breakdown and all of the big dramas. So where can we save? How can we save? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about invisible money. So an article by Aviva calculated that on average in the UK, you spend £18.23 a week on invisible items. So what do I mean by invisible items? Well, it's the money that kind of slips through your fingers when you're out and about. It's the bottle of water that you buy as you're getting to the station, or the cost of coffee that you've just got yourself on the way home because you deserved it, or you've been caning it and you have a terrible hangover the night before and you can't wait until you get into the office. It's those £3 meal deals from Tesco's when we haven't managed to arrange anything or to do anything suitable at home. It's the posted drinks. It's the Mars bars, it's all of these things that we don't necessarily account for or budget for in our savings. It's just that invisible money that slips through our fingers. So while £18.33 mightn't sound like a lot, if you escalate that over a year, it's almost £1,000 spent on nothing. And if you think of that in terms of a working lifetime, you're looking at nearly £50,000 per person. Remember, these aren't the life essentials. These are the sort of sundry things that we just lose money on. We just, we don't even calculate or think about. When you think about those figures, again, this was set in 2015. It doesn't really account for any potential inflationary increases. So, there's room there, and I'm not saying that's it. Do not spend £18.23. All the CAP coaches are there. You'll know it's all about cutting down, cutting back, cutting out. If you were to cut down on that, say, you could actually save quite a significant amount of money, particularly when you look at what you'll be saving in a year or over a lifetime. Okay, so I'm going to let these figures bounce in. So when I teach or when I facilitate a budgeting course or just my general money course to people that are living on benefits or sort of like very, very low income families, we talk about saving, we talk about sort of goals, because quite often people in that position don't have any goals because they're just struggling to get through the day. So we play a little game, and which is like, what would you do if I gave you £75, 150, £300? And sort of, the first initial lot is they're just going to go out and treat themselves, or they're going to pay off some bills, or by the time we get to £300, they're probably going to do all of those things and put a little bit away. But when you actually tell people, well, you could have £75 in 10 months, or that 150 in 10 months, then they're like quite aghast. So I'm just going to ask you, and Alison, if you wouldn't mind being my eyes, how much do you think you'd have to save a day to get £75 in 10 months?
Feel free to anyone unmute and answer. That's
fine. Yourself and shout out. And I know I've got those accountants there. I hope you're not on your calculators furiously. Any takers? You're all being shy?
30p.
20p. You're not far off, actually. I'm going to filter the numbers in.
Is this how much you'd have to save a day?
How much you'd save a day? How much you need to save a day? Yeah, I'm going to filter the numbers in.
Go for it.
To accumulate £75, to have saved £75 by this time, well, not this time, next year, by say next July, next June, you'd need to save 25p a day. Now, even people that are on benefits, when you break it down for them like that, it's like, do you think you could find 25p a day? They can begin to do the calculations in their head and just think, oh, well, if Johnny didn't have that bag of crisps, or if I didn't get the bus every day this week, then, I could find 25p a day. Or maybe it's that one treat coffee that you have once a week. That's about £3.50, so it's significantly more than 25p a day. 50p a day would get you £150, and whoops, there should be another one on there. £1 a day would get you £300. So again, even people that are on very, very low incomes, when you break it down for them like that, it's like, oh yeah, I think I can manage that. Okay, that makes sense for me. And that £75 could be a major contribution, or maybe in its entirety, to getting a child's school uniform for them to start in September. It could be an outing over the summer holidays. You break things down. People quite often don't save when they're in that position, because they think savings means I have to find £20 or £30 or £50 a month, or else it's just not worth doing. So what if you have absolutely no money at all? Well, if your debts have got into such a state that you're actually seeking the advice and guidance of a debt advice manager, then we would use a document called the Standard Financial Statement. And this is basically like an income and expenditure statement, which your debt advisor will do with you to figure out how much disposable income that you've got, allowing for your living expenses, which would then be prorated amongst your priority debts. So even if you have absolutely no money and you're in debt, the Standard Financial Statement makes an allowance for you to save a small amount of money every month. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to do this if you absolutely can't afford it. It isn't mandatory. But with the Standard Financial Statement, you can put away up to 10% of your disposable income, up to a maximum of £20. So you can see, even at your very, very lowest, there is still potential to save some money. Quite often it's about breaking things down and helping people to understand that, it's an old adage, but, pennies really, save the pennies and the pounds really will take care of themselves. And that could be the difference between somebody's boiler breaking down or having a pipe burst and being plunged into over-indebtedness. So this is something that we focus on very much when we're dealing with people. But a couple of schemes that you may or may not may not know about. You've got the Government Help to Save scheme, which again is helping people on certain benefits, working tax credit or universal credit, encouraging them to save. And for every £1 that they save over 4 years, the government will actually give a bonus of 50p. So what does that look like? You can save between £1 and £50 every calendar month. You don't have to save every calendar month, by the way, so you're not obliged to do that. But potentially you could save £2,400 over 4 years, and the government would match that up to a value of £1,200. So again, it could be quite a significant amount of money that you could save there. So you will receive the bonus for that at the end of the second year and at the end of the fourth year. So on all of these slides, which Alison's going to circulate for you, or many of them, you'll find some internet links that you can click on to get more information there. So I very much encourage you to do that. So the Child Trust Fund. So it was much mooted back in the day. The first of those child trust funds have matured and youngsters can claim them. But there's not a whole lot of noise being made about it, probably buried by this pandemic thing and that Trump thing that's happening over the seas there. So child trust funds, they were launched in 2005 and they were made available to all children born between September 2002 and January 2011. So it only lasted for that duration, and then the government introduced junior ISAs, beg your pardon. Okay, so those child trust funds could be worth £1,000 or more now for your child if they were born during that time. So the HMRC sent parents or their guardians a voucher to the value of between £250 and £500 for them to invest. If they didn't invest in the Children's Trust Fund, then the account was actually open on the child's behalf. So the thing that's interesting is that no money could have been withdrawn from these children's trust funds until the child reaches 18. And as soon as they reach 18, unfortunately, you have no say or control over the money. It's down to the young person to actually take control of that and to invest that and hopefully use it wisely. In fact, although they can't withdraw the money, teenagers from the age of 16 that are eligible can actually take control of that money and invest it elsewhere. So as I say, September 2020, September this year, we're still no, we're not in September anymore, we're in October. The first of those children trust funds matured, and they will continue to do so until 2029. So if you have a child in the corresponding age group, you may have known about this, you may have forgotten all about it entirely, but there is still quite a money that can start your child or your young person saving. And gosh, God knows they all need a bit of a break at the moment. They're having a terrible time. So what happens when they're 18? So their government should have written to them, or their provider should have written to them to notify that they're eligible to receive the cash from their investment. They're given instructions how they can do it. If you don't respond, then the account will be closed, but it'll be rolled over into an appropriate ISA, so it's still there. So again, at the bottom of the slide and on the previous slide, there are a couple of links which will tell you how to find out about it and also what to do when you turn 18, how you can actually get your hands on that grant there. So that could potentially be £1,000, £1,200, I think is the maximum, unless other people actually invested in that for you, to actually start our teenagers off with a little bit of a cash flow, a lump sum. So we've identified some of the ways that we can actually save some money, even if it seems like it's completely hopeless, right the way down to people, as I say, that are seeing debt advisors. But what do you do about that? How do we support people in the community? So community banking matters. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about credit unions, and then I'm going to talk to you about how you can bring that into your community as a community savers club. So credit unions, I manage Brent Mutual, which is part of Hillingdon Credit Union, and I'm one of the volunteers that facilitates our parish credit union, which is affiliated to London Capital. So credit unions were created as cooperatives to provide affordable access to loans and other financial services with a common bond. In the UK, that bond tends to be a geographical bond, which I believe is less successful than the European model, which tends to be based on a employment bond. So just like how you might have the TUC as an organisation, there would be a credit union equivalent. Anyhow, so the mission of credit union is people helping people. It's been paramount since the beginning. They're not for profit organisations. So when you join a credit union, it means you become a member. You can vote at the AGMs. You can influence their policy. And by being a not-for-profit, it means that you get a greater return on your savings and you get lower preferential rates on any loans that you might take out with them as well. So credit unions work by using the regular savings of its members to provide the means to fund those loans to other members when necessary. So they provide, or what they offer, is secure ethical savings, access to affordable credit in the name of low-cost loans, profit sharing dividend. So this is kind of the equivalent of paying interest, sort of at the end of the year, once all the finances are calculated, any profits that are made once costs have been removed will be shared amongst the members. They offer young savers accounts, online access accounts, and incentive bounty payments, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. So we've seen that putting away even small amounts of the money are the best way to guarantee against unforeseen circumstances and emergencies. So with Brent Mutual Credit Union, you can save as little as £2.50 a week, which is £35 a day, which it'd be clever if I'd done the calculation to figure out how much that would be in 10 months, but I haven't. Your accountants, and some of you can do that for me. So just talking about the bounty payment and why I believe that's so important. When another member encourages, or when a member of the credit union encourages another member, or another friend, family, whoever, to actually join the credit union, once that person has been saving regularly for 3 months, the person that introduced them gets £10. So it's a little bonus, if you like, a little bounty payment. But peeling that back and stripping that away, you can be quite clever about using that as a means to boost your savings. But what's so vitally important about that is that it encourages those conversations in the community about money. And we all know that people do not like to talk about money, and sort of financial hardship quite often leads to not only social, but financial isolation as well. So it begins to get those conversations going, which is only a very powerful thing. To save when you can, borrow when you need, as I said before. Once you're a member, you can have access to low-cost loans. They're available, well, for Brent Mutual, they're available for brand new and existing members. With London Capital Credit Union, they like to see that you've been a member for at least 3 months and been saving regularly. So each credit union has its own sort of constitution. And the loans are based on the ability to repay, not on some cold, hard and fast, faceless algorithm. We all know how successful the government algorithms were predicting our children's grades this year. So it's about the individual rather than a faceless algorithm. Oh, that's a duplicate, that slide. I do beg your pardon. So if you're fortunate enough to have savings already, then we very much encourage you to place some of your savings in a credit union. So the money's instantly accessible, it's 100% saved. Like the high street banks, credit unions are guaranteed by the government financial services compensation scheme up to the value of £85,000. So if the credit union were to crash, then your savings would be guaranteed by the government up to that value. And of course, you can earn a competitive dividend. So many of you may have seen, if you're fans of Martin Lewis, Money Expert, that interest rates are about to be slashed for many accounts. I think for the NSI account, which I have some savings with, it goes from 1.15% to 0.1. So, you know, practically nothing. But credit unions are still in a position to offer competitive rates. And plus, of course, your savings will be put to good use, and they will be there to support people in your community by being able to facilitate loans for them as well. So again, there's another little video there that you can watch. So I'm going to talk to you about community savers clubs, and a little bit about in the community for the community again. So my role, as I said, is to support you to facilitate your own financial initiatives to ensure that you build financially resilient communities. Now, of course, we realise that some of you will come from large, thriving churches with lots of eager volunteers with time on their hands, and many of you may equally come from very, very small parishes or parishes that have a very elderly population and not many people that are in a position to volunteer. So what we are trying to do is we will still provide direct services, but what we're trying to do is to encourage those that can to do, so that you take ownership of this, and we begin to build a network across London, across the diocese, of financial resilience and financial capability. So we will support you to do that in whatever way we can. So we can provide money management courses for the members of your community and the service users. We can train you to actually deliver those as well. So as I say, we'll train your staff and volunteers to continue doing that. So it's interesting to know that in terms of financial advice, that there's probably, again, this is a figure from the Peter Ryman report, 2018 to 2019, that said that 8 million people were in need of financial advice, or debt advice, I should say, but only 1.5 million of them actually had access to it. So by creating this network, you are in such a strong position, privileged position, to actually reach those marginalised people. And so many more people are going to be marginalised this year and not know the system. So, you know, it was almost the people that were already on benefits, they kind of know their way around their benefit system. We are going to, again, have the tsunami of people who don't know their way around their system. They don't know where to go to. They don't know where to get advice. Even if they thought they knew where they would go, the access is limited because of the situation that we find themselves in. So they're going to turn to those trusted leaders within their community, which you're all wonderful specimens of. So we can help you to set up a community savers club. So at my particular church, there are 3 of us. Well, I've kind of veered away a little bit, but there are 3 of us who run the community savers club. We run on a Tuesday morning, or we used to run face-to-face on a Tuesday morning and on a Wednesday evening, just for a couple of hours a day. We also have a, what do they call it? Our Young at Heart Club, which is our Silver Surfer Pensioners Club. When they used to meet in person, they'd have the opportunity to pay their subs for the club and to pay in a couple of pounds to the credit union as well. We set up just before COVID, again, I'm using the royal we, I set up a community savers club with Brent Mencap, which I believe would have been, unfortunately, as COVID came down and kiboshed it a little bit, but it would have been the first community savers club run by and for people with learning disabilities. So we're not talking about complex, bureaucratic, administrative, financial skills that are needed or anything like this. It's very, very, very simple to do. And I'm going to speed up a little bit because I know I want to give you the opportunity to ask some questions, but please reach out to me, talk to me. We have a video that I'm sure Alison could add to this as well, which I should have popped in, which will tell you a little bit more about that. But it's something that you can do very, very easily in your parish, and it doesn't take very much resource. So steaming through, October 15th is International Credit Union Day. So if you do nothing, why not pick up the phone and have a conversation with me?
I'll send all that round as well, Pat, so don't worry about that. We can do that afterwards. I'm really keen to ask you a couple of questions, though, before we move on about the savings club that you set up, because that's what we really want to talk about today is how do we get a saving? So your community savers is people who already meet at a church or a parish or a community group or that kind of thing. They're already meeting, they've already got relationships, and you encourage them to just bring a little bit of money along, or they kind of, or how do you get people to actually see it as something that they do as part of their habits? Because I think that's something that you've been encouraging. And what practically did that mean? Like, what did you have to do?
Well, it's going to be a little bit challenging now because obviously
because of COVID,
because of COVID. But in many communities, you've got saving circles, things such as a partner in the West Indian community, a kitty in the Indian community, a committee in the Bengali, in the Pakistani community. So you have many types of saving circles, and it's a great honour to be invited to join any one of those. And what typically happens is everybody pays £100 once a month, and every month the jackpot, if you like, is given to a different member, but they continue to pay that £100. is bring that sort of saving culture back into the community. So I can talk about credit unions until I'm blue in the face, but most people either won't know what they are, or they're one of these faceless institutions like your bank on the high street, like the Big Six or what have you. So by bringing that savings culture into your community, we would operate after mass. We would make it part of a social event. So as I say, when we had our Young at Heart Club, and they used to meet on a monthly basis, they'd pay £1 to, as part of their subs, and they might pay £1 into the credit union as well. With the Brent MenCap, it was the conclusion of a 6-week course that we did for them, teaching them some basic money skills and teaching them how to run the credit union themselves. And that might seem like such an onerous task, but basically back in the days when we could use cash, it was merely about collecting the money, giving out a receipt, filling it in on the spreadsheet, and scanning that or faxing that to the credit union that you're affiliated to, and banking the money. So really, really, really simple. Can't stress that enough.
So I'm just, I mean, we need to talk about how we do that, because we're not gathering at the moment, and I'm really aware of that's a massive barrier, because it was all very local community. People come, physically hand over, oh, I've got 50 in my purse, I'll put that in this week. But in terms of your role, you collected that money up, did an email to the credit union, and put it in the post office, and that was it. You're not liable for that. It's a very quick transaction for you to do.
Exactly, just a conduit. So right now, all credit unions will operate online. As most banks, there'll be an online opportunity to do that. So a lot of people that joined our credit union, we never even saw, because they were sort of youngsters, upwardly mobile, sort of computer savvy, so they would just organise their standing order, and that would be that. We have actually opened again on a Monday.
Have you?
Yeah, because for many people they're used to our Monday service, our Monday. And for many people, it's about breaking that social isolation barrier.
Yeah.
Everybody knows they can do it online, but they know that we're still there. And, of course, we observe all of the socially distanced protocols and what have you. And what we do, if we're in a position to, we try and assist them to set up a direct debit. So it's going to coincide with their pension or with their benefit payment, or what have you. But for people that, just typically be walking past and happen to have found a few farthings in their pocket, they can still pop in and do that. So some of you may be in a position to do that, or you may not be in a position to do that. But
your church is a member of the credit union, isn't it? So that's the way it worked, the mechanism that it worked.
Oh gosh, I don't know what the contractual terms or phrases would be, but we are affiliated. So
right. Yeah.
If somebody wanted to take a loan out, we wouldn't make a decision on that loan. We're basically sort of like the middleman, with another counter, if you like. All of that sort of paperwork would go back to the head credit union, the one to which we're affiliated, and they would make the decisions, do credit checks. And
so you're not a financially regulated conduct authority. You're not having to worry about any of that. You're basically hosting a community space where you can then link people to the credit union, which they probably otherwise wouldn't have heard about or wouldn't have seen.
Absolutely. You do not need to be registered. I happen to be in my role as an advice for renters, but you don't have to.
So it's not, you're not taking on any risk yourself, or any awkward conversations about how much people have got in their accounts or anything like that. You're not having those, well, you've only got 50p, or you've got £300, and you don't know that. You just literally take the money and pay it in. Brilliant. Okay.
Indeed. I really can't impress upon you. It's actually, out of COVID, it's a really, really simple thing to do. And this is what actually led to us developing further, because that was all that we did originally. But you find that when people actually come to see you, that they'll start telling you about their money worries, about they don't know how they're going to pay that bill, or, I've got to take all my money out because I've got this massive payment I need to pay. They start divulging things. And it was from there that led to our evolution in developing sort of like further services and trying to solve situations such as the crisis grants.
And then setting the inevitable consequence of setting up a debt advice centre, knowing that you've got so this was the beginning of all that. The engine for all that was actually just having people come in and talk about money and save a little bit every week or every month.
Absolutely. I mean, that arose out of a need in the parish where we had a family that was suddenly plunged into funeral poverty by the inevitable, and found themselves in all sorts of problems. And we thought, look, we can't sit back and watch this happen again. What can we do? Now, parish priest is just the most dynamic man in the world, and his sister happens to be the president of ABCOR, which is the Association of British Credit Unions. So it was like the perfect storm with the perfect solution. So that's what led us down that path. But yeah, it just takes a willing heart, a couple of volunteers, and you're off and running.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think there is a whole challenge at the moment because we're not meeting together. And I know a lot of people who are looking at people who have mental health problems, people who normally those drop-in things would have been an absolute godsend. They're really missing them. So I'm aware it's not quite so straightforward in COVID times, but it's certainly worth thinking about. I'm also aware that not every credit union will be able to offer that. So I guess partly the question is, the first thing is to go and find your local credit union, have a conversation with them and say, we're thinking of doing this. Is this something you could facilitate, I guess?
Well, you'll find yourself, as I say, most credit union, or all credit unions in the UK have a geographical bond, and quite often they will overlap geographically. So if you find that one has no interest, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, to be honest, this time, have an interest, then you may well find that the alternative will do. But I think they're very, very keen to, this is what they're all about. So people have, and no more time do we need it than now, really.
I'm aware there's a question from Ben, but I just wanted to come to Julia and say, is that as a credit union, do you want to, as your Enfield, so your North London Credit Union?
In North London, yeah. So as Pat was saying, there is a massive overlap, particularly in the cities, and in London, our entire is overlapped by at least one other credit union. We're the best, but we're based in Enfield. So what you'll find is most credit unions have a sort of, if I can call it, a gentleman's agreement that they won't. So our home patch, if you like, is Enfield, because that's where we're based. So other credit unions would sort of, give us first refusal on things happening in Enfield, and likewise, London Capital, for example, their home base is Islington. That's their local authority. Some credit unions, we do have employer-based credit unions in the UK. They tend to be a lot larger, and they tend to be, I suppose, probably only visible really if you are a member of that sector. So we've got some large transport credit unions, for example. Also, you might find that your local community credit union offers payroll schemes. And they're an excellent way to facilitate credit union growth. Most will do their local authority. We have our local authority. We also have a large local hospital, and we've got and we'll pretty much, if somebody's got a large payroll, then we'll accept them as a partner. We've got private companies, charities, as well as sort of third sector, I guess. Most credit unions are actually quite cash rich. We don't need massive amounts of savings, but we do need members. But I don't want to put anybody off joining a credit union and sort of saving £10 a month kind of thing. We offer a variety of ways to save. We're not a cash credit union ourselves. We would be happy to operate savings clubs. And we've spoken to local schools and community organisations. We offer direct debit as well as standing order, because we often find that having to set up a payment method yourself, it can be a bit of a barrier. So we do direct debits, which we can set up. I mean, people can stop them. They're not continuous payment authorities or anything. And we have a little reminder that we send out every month. So I'm talking very quickly because I don't want to take up too much time. In terms of, I noticed that loan criteria was mentioned in the questions. No, we so in terms of payment, what we're interested in is consistency and affordability of your income. So we don't really mind where your income comes from, if it's benefits, if it's employment, or if it's for a lot of our members, it's a mixture. And we're also we have North London Credit Union, because we were originally set up as a business credit union, we have a lot of members who are self-employed. And unlike the banks, we try and make it easy for people to sort of to demonstrate their income, which I know which can be tricky. So I was just making notes as we went.
No, it's all right, don't worry. I think I can send some stuff around, Julia, about what your credit unions. I just wanted to make the point really that different areas have different credit unions. So one of the slight frustrations about doing this is different credit unions will have different capacity and rules. So it's about getting to know your local one. And I know the Brent Mutual and Hillingdon Credit Union, they've got one, you know, I've worked with all the credit unions across the diocese, and I know they're all slightly different. So if you are thinking you want to do something set up in your church or your community group or the place that you work or whatever with a credit union, just check them out. And if you want to know how to find out your local credit union, come and talk to me or Pat or anyone else who might know that thing. So yeah, but yeah, that's a really good thing. Can I come to Ben's question? Ben, you said if you have defaulters, do you mean people who borrow money from the credit union? Yeah, and how's that dealt with? I don't know, Julia, you want to talk about that? This is if you had someone who borrowed from a credit union.
We would. It depends. It depends on whether we think that they can't repay us or whether they won't repay us. For any lender, you don't want to get a reputation as a soft touch, because then everybody will sort of come to you and won't pay back your loans. On the other hand, we are ethical lenders. So the first thing to say is we only lend if it's affordable. So it's not a quick credit kind of thing. It's not, you know, we won't just lend to anybody. We will make sure that they can afford to repay as far as we can tell. If somebody comes to us and says, my circumstances have changed, I can't repay you, then we will work with them. We will try our best to sort of find an arrangement that works for them and works for us. We have obviously got all the legal avenues open to us that are available to any other creditor, but we don't want to go down that route. We really rather people talk to us. Yeah.
Great, brilliant.
Question.
But I think importantly, you're not responsible. If you're setting up a little community savings club, it's the credit union does that directly with the person. So if you were hosting a club, you don't have to get involved in that. It's the credit union will deal with that. So
no,
do you want to come back to that question? Sorry,
I was just going to say the loan agreement. The loan assessment is done by us. The loan agreement is with us. There's no liabilities for any third party.
Brilliant. Ben, sorry, do you want to come back?
Yes, it was. I was also thinking about people that might just slip away, disappear, that they might change address, or you just can't trace them. Have you had that? Because you know, population around here is fairly mobile, and I could see that would be a problem. Yeah,
I mean, it can be a problem here as well, because lots of people sort of rent. It's very unusual for someone to disappear completely without a trace. Because we do have the ability, it's in all of our agreements to trace people. Whether then it's worth us taking any action, it varies. We look at it on a case-by-case basis, basically.
Okay. Right. I'm aware we've got literally 2 minutes left. I'm sorry it's been a complete whistle-stop tour of why it's important to save, and then ways that we can do it ourselves, but also ways that we can encourage our communities to save. I feel like there's another conversation to be had about how we do that in the time of COVID. But I'm also aware some people have actually had money to save, haven't they, during lockdown, because they're not spending the £18 a month or whatever on coffees, and people have had travel money that they would normally have spent. So people might be hopefully encouraging to save a little bit more. And I know I talked to Bradford District Credit Union, a really good credit union up in Bradford, and they've done some brilliant stuff. And they said that actually they've got huge numbers of very low income savers, and they have seen people on average, and these are people who are really earning not huge amounts, on average people have saved more than £200 a month more in the last 6 months. They're just seeing people's savings rate go up. So be encouraged that people are managing and resilient, and they're trying to build a culture of savings there. So I think it is happening. It's just how do we get on board with that, I suppose, and encourage that.
Well, I think sort of the people that are doing, fair to middling, we've noticed the same in our credit union as well, because people haven't spent that large life-changing amount on their summer holidays or on their weddings and all of these things. So we've noticed a massive uptake in savings, which we weren't expecting as well. But I think from a church perspective, it's how do we reach those people that aren't saving, those marginalised people, those people with small amounts of money or and no inclination and no hope. That's kind of where we need to be focusing and thinking about.
And that's why the church and Goffin has the reach to people who otherwise wouldn't access a bank or a building society. Absolutely, Pat. Thank you. I feel like we could talk loads more. I will send around the video that we made with Pat just to explain what they did at Sacred Heart. Thank you so much, Pat, and actually thank you, Julia, as well, for being our resident credit union expert. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully see you again soon.